Okay, so let's go take a look at that store now. We're here with Rebecca from the Fox Reads, and she's a new TPT seller. She's been selling for a little over 6 months, and we're taking a look at some of her resources. We're going to take a look at her store, and these are quick audits. So these are not in-depth audits, but basically what I'm doing is I'm looking for red flags and maybe even some orange flags and giving TPT authors some things that they can work on within their store that will help them meet their goals. And if you want to watch the full coaching call with Rebecca, I encourage you to check out the link inside of the description. You can watch this entire video, but let's take a look at your store. Okay, so one of the things that I like is you've got a great call to action banner here. Welcome. You're giving them something to do to follow your store when they're here, and you're giving them a reason to do it. I also think that this type of banner, putting right here, like having fun in the library, this is kind of your store's motto, your brand motto. It's giving them information about who you are, the types of resources that you create. And I know in the very beginning, it can be really overwhelming to think about what to put in this banner, especially like what products do I highlight? What should I put here? That kind of thing. And this is a really simple way to utilize that banner if you're brand new, just having something to put there and it having a purpose, even if it's not like the quote unquote best purpose, right? Like ideally we would be highlighting a product line or a seasonal resource or something like that. But if all you can do is just get something up that tells visitors a little bit more about your store, incorporate your branding a little bit more, this is a great start. So I love that. So when we talked, and you've got 26 products, and when we were talking before about branding and wanting to make sure that your covers are aesthetically pleasing, they're standing out, they're eye-catching, but without looking like everybody else's, right? I would say, first of all, for a new seller, your covers look really good. They look really, really good. There are a couple of things that I would tweak. Number one, I actually really love your branding font. And I know that this is the same font, but I love the colors, how they alternate. I think it's really popping and eye-catching, whereas I feel like this kind of just blends in and is a little bit harder to read. I can still read it, don't get me wrong, like I'm not struggling too much, but I feel like this is easier to read. If it were me, I would stick with that same alternating colors that you have in your branding, and I would use that on your covers.
Okay.
I would also say that while I love your scripty, scrolly font that you have for branding, I don't love it on the covers. For ones like this where you can make it really large, like quiz number 1, I can read that. But for ones like this one, it's really kind of difficult to read and I really kind of have to pause.
I was going to say that's something that I've kind of gone back and forth on, and my husband has made that point, but I don't listen to him sometimes. So.
Yeah, I know, right? Neither do I. So my husband actually told me the same thing whenever we first got married. He was like, you should pay somebody to do your covers for you. And I was highly offended, but he was right. He was definitely right. And mine looked way worse than yours. I can tell you that right now. Like I had some issues going on with my covers. But with the scripty scrolly font, you want to think about the fact that if somebody's coming across your product in search, which right now is going to be the primary way that they come across your product because you're so new, you're not doing any marketing, so you're having to rely on that organic traffic that's coming from the TPT search engine, that they are scrolling. You know how we do when we're buyers. We're just scrolling real fast. So if I can't read it in half a second, it's probably not going to get read. So that's one thing to keep in mind is maybe pick a font that's still nice, still bold. It can still be a little bit different from the font that you currently have or from this, top font, but just more legible, easier to read at a glance is what I would say. Okay. Another thing that I'm noticing is you have quite a bit of variety within your cover templates. And this is normal, especially when you're first starting out and you're trying to figure out what looks best. And with each new product that you create, you've learned more, you're trying something different, that kind of thing. But I would say try to come up with one template for, say, all of your bulletin boards. It's not only going to make it so much easier for you to create those covers and to create them faster because they're all following the exact same template. But it's going to make it a little bit easier for the people to recognize what resources are yours.
Okay.
So, for example, like these two look very similar, but like, let's see. I think I came across one down here, but maybe I didn't. Those are announcements. I would even put like the announcements, like you could even use a very similar one to your announcements. And maybe I didn't see one that was that different. Maybe these are pretty close, but I noticed like you've got this lesson and you've got a big bold font over the top of it, but then your other lessons don't look the same. So just kind of coming up with a format that's going to fit and streamline those just a little bit more. And even across, like you've got this game, but then you've got these gift tags, but then you've got announcements. There are ways that you can still make those look like they're all branded and all together. Like, for example, you can utilize the same mock-up for these morning meeting slides that you're using for announcement slides. And that's just going to kind of help build that branding for you and make everything a lot simpler for you. The only other thing that I would say is make sure that you're putting a value grab on each one of your resources. So first of all, I think it's great that you've got the grade level on here, but I cannot read it as is. I think a simple font change, maybe even a background change, going like black on top of white, white on top of black, or something like that would remedy this problem. And you would still be able to fit it within the same space or similar amount of space, but I would make that a little bit larger. And then I would also think about utilizing that value grab to justify the cost of your resource. So if I've got a censorship lesson, maybe I'm putting something in there like includes a full lesson plus activity, something like that.
Okay.
Full lesson plus independent practice. Maybe for my library forms, I'm putting something like X number of forms, something on there like scavenger hunt, X number of problems, something on there that tells the buyer what all they're getting in a very concise format. Okay. That way, when they're looking at your product and looking at the cost, because that's usually what we do, we scroll, we're looking at the cover, we're looking at something that catches our eye, and then immediately from that thing that catches our eye, we're going right over and we're looking at cost. So I want that cost to be justified before they ever look at it. And I think in today's economy, that's even more important than it's ever been before, especially with a lot of new sellers being on the market. Some of them are underpricing their resources, but also the TPT search engine is prioritizing resources that are getting higher conversion rates, that are getting more clicks and things like that. And a lot of times those resources are going to be the less expensive resources. So we really want to make sure on the onset, we're justifying that price and we're showcasing the value that our product has to offer rather than undercutting prices. Overall, though, I would say that your covers look really good. Let's just take a quick look at your previews real quick. 7, 8, 9, 10. So you've only got 4 grade levels tagged. Don't ask me why I'm a math teacher and I still have to count those, but I do. And genre, personality quiz. One thing that I would say is remember that with your keywords, that when you're choosing keywords, you want to put your most important keywords at the very beginning. So just keep that in mind whenever you're titling these. I'm not an expert on keywords for library resources, but just to note, because I do notice you have quite a few here. So whatever keywords you're really trying to stand out for, make sure you have that. But I do love that you're using middle and high school. You're putting those grade levels on there, which will help those secondary teachers find you. Okay, so we've got Personality quiz 1, popular genres includes these genres. No prep, print and go, print version included, and then double-sided bookmarks. So one of the things that I would say is to put something like X number of slides or X number of questions and what the overall goal is. One of the things that we want to do is we want to guide them. So they're either looking for an experience or they're looking for convenience. Sometimes they're looking for both, but usually we're really trying to sell them on one or the other. In this case, I would say that you're trying to sell them on an experience. So we really want to walk them through what that experience is going to look like for the student and what the outcome is going to be. And I want to showcase that or tell the buyer that in my thumbnails and in my preview. So starting with something like students will do this to accomplish this, right? Students will answer X number of questions in order to blank. And then showing them things like, choose between the digital version and the print version. When students are finished, they get these bookmarks with recommended books based on their preferences or something like that. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yes.
So just kind of walking them through what that experience is going to look like. And that's what one of the things that I ask myself every time I'm creating a resource. Am I selling them on convenience or am I selling them on an experience? If I'm selling them on an experience, I need to sequentially walk them through what that experience is going to look like for their students and give them that outcome. Like, here's what's going to happen, and this is going to result in this desired outcome right here, which is that students are going to get a recommended book list, or students are going to get ideas for books or, resources that they might be interested in. If I'm walking them through something that's going to be convenient for them, so for example, your morning slides, I think it was, let's see here. Oh, a censorship lesson could be that, but let's see, convenient for them might be a bulletin board. That's not really an experience. Library forms, that's definitely not an experience. That's definitely convenience. Then in that case, I'm really showcasing value and I'm highlighting aspects that are going to make it convenient for them. So I'm still wanting to state what you're getting and what your desired outcome is going to be with this. Volunteer form. What are you going to do with this volunteer form? How are you going to use it? How is it going to save you time? Don't have to answer all of those questions right there inside of the preview, but maybe picking one of those questions to answer. Same for like menu of library services. Help students find blank. Like, what's the desired outcome for offering that menu of your library services? This just allows the buyer to move further into that process of either making a purchase or, in this case, getting the free download. Because if the buyer kind of comes in, they're taking a look at it, and then they decide whether or not to purchase. And in between those two steps, there's a critical turning point with having that buyer visualize what it would be like to use that product in their classroom. And if they can visualize using that product in their classroom, they're going to purchase or download it. If they cannot visualize using that product in their classroom, they're probably not going to purchase it. So that's where we really want to focus on, here's what the resource is, and here's your desired outcome. When I give them that desired outcome, it just really helps give them that puzzle piece that can help them visualize utilizing that resource in your classroom. So just kind of doing that with your previews. And I think that that's going to make a really big difference in your conversion rates. But overall, aesthetically, your previews look really good. And that's just one little piece that I would add into it. And that's it.
I can do that.
Okay. Yeah. And that's really all I have for you. I think that those are two really basic things that you can work on with your covers and your previews. And as long as you've got those, I think that you're going to be doing really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.